if there is a motion from our board. Mr. Grant?
Move we approve the agenda as amended.
A motion.
Second.
Ms. Zimmerman seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. The next item we have is with Mr. Chambers, the Slanted Education Foundation lift presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us some time tonight to celebrate our lift recipients and our grant recipients. For those of you that don't know, I'm Michael Chambers. I'm the Executive Director of the Slanted Education Foundation. And first thing I'd like to do tonight is to recognize our newest lift recipients. And LIFT is a program of the Slanted Education Foundation which is made possible by the generous donations from people in our community. Since its beginning in 2006, the LIFT program has awarded more than $340,000 in forgivable loans to Salina's future teachers. LIFT recipients are offered forgivable loans to assist them with educational expenses in their pursuit of becoming teachers. And once they finish their education and return to USD 305, the loans are forgiven over the time that they teach in the district. Recipients are selected in a competitive process by Education Foundation trustees, USD 305 staff, and community members. And this year we have 8 LIFT recipients, the largest group of LIFT recipients we've ever selected in a single year. Our trustees are making an investment equal to $120,000 in this group. And I've asked each of the recipients here tonight to introduce themselves to you and to tell you a little bit about why they want to become teachers and what the LIFT program means to them. So I'll call each of them up individually. Diana Geist, you're first. Congratulations.
Okay, well, as he said, I am Diana Geist, and I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity to be a LIFT recipient. I remember sitting in my 3rd grade classroom, science classroom at Hughesner Elementary School, and I had Mrs. Frost, who, as far as I know, is still teaching at South Middle, so I'm sure many other people have had her. She was my science teacher from kindergarten through 5th grade. And I remember in 3rd grade, I was sitting in her classroom and I just look up at her and I go, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so basically from that moment on, I have been working to be a teacher. I've been taking lots of classes in high school, getting lots of credit hours so that I could then attend Emporia State University, which is where I'm at now. And I am working towards a bachelor's in elementary education with a middle level endorsement in science. So I will be certified to teach K through 8th grade science. And I'm just really excited to be able to come back to Salina and give back to all of this wonderful community the same things that they have given me in my life.
Megan Hausholter is next.
Like he said, I'm Megan Hausholter. Education has been a big part of my life and part of my family since I was a little kid. My mom is actually a teacher here at USD 305 at the middle school, so ever since I was younger, I've kind of gotten to see the teaching side of things as well as obviously being a student myself. And then I've just had lots of amazing teachers in USD 305. I don't think I ever had a teacher that I didn't like. So it was kind of getting those personal connections with those teachers that really kind of pushed me to want to do the same thing myself, be able to pass that on to my future students. So I'm obviously very thankful to have the opportunity to be here and to get to talk to you guys and to have gotten this scholarship because it gives me the money I need, obviously, to get the education to be the best teacher I can be and kind of pass on the same experiences that the teachers that I loved gave to me. So thank you.
Zach, you're next. Zach Sellis.
Hello, my name is Zach Solis. I'm a senior at South High. I'm going to be going to Bethany College in Lindsborg for music education. And LIFT scholarship is really important to me. This is helping me pay off my college, be able to come back here and hopefully be one of the band directors at South or Central High or in the Salina area. It's been very important to me. Music has been really a massive part of my life. I planned on going into engineering until this semester, where I just kind of realized what an impact my directors have made on me, and I want to be able to pass that on to the students that I'm going to teach. So, thank you.
And Cameron Sutton. Congratulations.
Hi, my name is Cameron Sutton, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to be here today. It's an incredible honor to be chosen to receive the LIFT Scholarship. As a graduate of USD 305, I am delighted to be able to give back to the community that has raised me to be who I am today. I am currently attending McPherson College, pursuing a combined bachelor's and master's degree in elementary education. Becoming an educator is something that I kind of just know that I'm meant to be. There's not really a reason why. I just know that's where I'm supposed to be. I look forward to starting my teaching career with Salina Public Schools in the fall of 2025. Thank you.
We also have 4 other LIFT recipients who, for various reasons, could not be with us tonight. But they are Hannah Kipp, Lauren Allen, Madison Ehrlich, and Paige Musselwhite. Congratulations to all of this year's recipients, and we look forward to each of you becoming excellent teachers in USD 305. Since its founding, Salina Education Foundation has awarded $788,000 to teachers in USD 305, and this year we've committed $29,000 in grants for the 2022-2023 school year. And these grants are funded through charitable gifts made by USD 305's teachers and staff, Salina Education Foundation's business partners, and other donors throughout the community. For the first time this year, Salina Education Foundation was able to award Joan Barheit special education grants. And these grants were made possible through an endowment which was established at the Salina Education Foundation in memory of Mrs. Barheit by her children and siblings and her husband. Mrs. Barheit was a longtime special education teacher in Salina Public Schools. Thank you to everyone who gives so generously to make the projects that we're going to announce happen in the classroom. They do provide a really enriching and enhanced experience for our students and give teachers the opportunity to try something new and creative. All of this year's grants recipients were celebrated in their classrooms with their students' presence this year. And we made a lot of noise and had a lot of fun recognizing the teachers in their classrooms with our giant check prize patrol that we did last week. And it was really, for me, fun to see the students get super excited for their teachers being celebrated. So the following people and projects were awarded funds this year. First, the first grant that I'm going to talk about is the Outside the Box grants, and those are to reward creativity aimed at expanding students' understanding of the community and the world. And Gina Turner at Meadowlark Ridge Elementary was awarded $1,000 for her William Allen White Award celebration trip. Relita Cheeks at the Salina Virtual Innovation Academy and Sunset Elementary School was awarded $700 for 5th grade college visits to Kansas Wesleyan. Amy Holgerson at Meadowlark Ridge was awarded $468 for a literacy play project. And Mr. Dustin Dooley, the principal at South Middle School, and Scott Chrisman, the principal at Lakewood Middle School, collaborated for a project on the 2022-2023 cultural crawl to downtown Salina, and they were awarded $2,000 for that project. Lisa Hall at Meadowlark Ridge was awarded $552 for her Passages to Comprehension project. Elizabeth Burke at South High School was awarded $888 for her Future Library program. Elizabeth Kenyon at Lakewood Middle School was awarded $379 for Makerspace 3D pens. Bridget Crow at Sunset Elementary School was awarded $1,665 for creative play tubs. And I have to say that the kindergartners in that class give the best hugs. Mr. Cheeks warned us, if you go to kindergarten, you're gonna get hugged, and they delivered. Lindsay Radial at Stewart Elementary School was awarded $1,121 for math and reading games. Carrie Pierce at the Central Kansas Cooperative in Education was awarded $2,050 for dramatic play equipment for preschoolers. Larry Collins at Central High School was awarded $400 for his Artist Getting Further t-shirt project. Shelley Parks at Central Kansas Cooperative in Education was awarded $300 for cause and effect motor skill projects. And Jill Howard at Meadowlark Elementary was awarded $184 for flexible seating options. Dina Hilbig at Meadowlark Ridge was awarded $717 for the Let's Grow Sensory Room project. And Sheila Schaefer at Central High School was awarded the largest grant at $2,275 for physics, classrooms, cart, and track equipment. Lisa Landauer at South High was awarded $1,000 for vocational skills training lab equipment. And the Barheit Special Education grants are funds that are provided to support projects which benefit students receiving special education services across the district. And Brandon Beffert at Coronado Elementary School was awarded $178 for his Reading Resources project. Jennifer Spotty at Schilling Elementary was awarded $397 for her Expanding Expressions project. And finally, Christina Flax at Stewart Elementary was awarded $425 to establish a sensory area in her classroom. Salina Education Foundation's Allocations Committee also committed $3,000 in funds to support field trips for teachers across the district next year to take their students out into the community. And additionally, $8,300 was made available to support Sutton opportunity grants in classrooms across the district, which gives teachers the opportunity to do something creative that comes up quickly without a lot of time to plan. So, having been through all of that, thank all of you for having us here tonight and for your support of the Salina Education Foundation. It really makes a difference in the classrooms and in the community, and it's fun to see these projects happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers, and thank you to you. I think we'd be amiss to not honor you for all you do to raise money and organize all of those things going on. So thank you for that. Next item is the You Make a Difference Awards with Ms. Kamian.
Good evening. The You Make a Difference Award is presented to staff members whose exemplary actions support students, colleagues, and the mission of Salina Public Schools. Recipients of these awards receive a lapel pin and a handwritten note personally delivered by a Board of Education member. Cindy Baker, paraeducator at Lakewood Middle School. Cindy's thoughtful and caring approach is appreciated by everyone who knows her. Cindy is always ready to help students with their homework and even brings breakfast and holiday treats to advisory class. Thank you, Cindy, for making a difference. Sandra Bagley, bilingual paraprofessional at Schilling Elementary School. Sandra goes the extra mile to make sure students' needs are met. She provided some home essentials for one student. She helps another with schoolwork during breakfast and even hand draws pictures for students to brighten their day. Thank you, Sandra, for making a difference. Abigail Aranda Vega, bilingual paraprofessional at South High School. Abigail provides language support for students, helping them navigate schedules and daily assignments. She assists them with translations and works with their parents when needed. Abigail's respectful approach is part of what makes her a positive role model for all. Thank you, Abigail, for making a difference. And now we'll move on to our Superintendent Excellence Awards with Superintendent Exline. We want to start with thanking our student photography intern, Ariana Nunez from South High School this evening. Thank you. Our first group of awards goes to robotics students at Central High. Salina Central. The team competed at the first Robotics Greater Kansas City Regionals and made it to the semifinals where they placed 19th out of 30 teams. Sheila Allstad is the coach. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the robotics students please line up next to them? Students, as I call your name, please step towards Superintendent Exline so you can receive your award. And after you've received your award, please go to the end of the line and then wait until everyone else has been recognized. Team members, Drew Allstat, Senior Captain. Colton Prothrow, Senior Co-Captain. Wesley Owens, Jr. Nathaniel Cabada, Senior. Aryan Kavat, Senior. Starlet Parham, Senior. Diego Garcia, Sophomore. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now. Our next group of awards this evening goes to bowling state qualifiers at South High School. Seth White is their coach. Will you please join Superintendent Exline here in the front? All right, thank you. Will all the bowling students please line up next to them? Bowling students? All right. Okay. The girls' team members are Nina Fries, junior, Riley Lambeth, freshman, Avery McComber, senior, Andrea Ordonez, sophomore, Aviana Ordonez, junior, Ayala Ordonez, sophomore, Callie Vargas, freshman. Congratulations, and will you please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you now? Our next award goes to a bowling state qualifier at Central High School. Will Coach Mike Kilgore and Keegan Gebhardt please join Superintendent Exline in the front? Congratulations to Keegan Gebhardt, Jr., who finished 16th at the state meet. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you. Our last group of awards tonight goes to basketball state qualifiers at Central High School. They were state runner-up and finished with a record of 24-1, which is a school record. Chris Fear is their coach. Will you please join Superintendent Exline in the front? And will all the basketball students please line up next to them? Students, as I call your name, please step towards Superintendent Exline so you can receive your award. Central girls basketball team members are Kendall Gary, sophomore, Hampton Williams, senior. Aubrey Kirsch, senior. Chalicia Samilton, senior. Michaela Cunningham, junior. Kaylin Hall, sophomore. Tyler Vidrickson, sophomore. Asby Peckham, sophomore. Elle Denning, sophomore. Please allow the Board of Education to congratulate you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an academic highlight with Ms. Rector.
Good evening. Let me adjust this. And I will scroll up in just a second. I wanted to bring an academic highlight to you. This will be something that we try to do periodically to inform the board and to inform the community of the wonderful things that are going on in our school district and the collaborative effort that we all put in to support our students and to support the health of our educational system. And so tonight's academic highlight is about graduation. And so what you see here is you see the state and also the USD 305 graduation rates for the last 5 years. And when we talk about graduation rate, basically each class, so like the class of 2017 is the first class that's on here. And so that's a cohort, the 2017 cohort, and it includes basically all of the students that should have graduated that year. And so for our district in 2017, we had a graduation rate of 86. And then you can see that in 18, we had 88. 2019, 87, and then the last 2 years in 2020 and 2021, we've had a graduation rate of 91%. And so that shows that we have had a growth in some of the toughest years that we have faced over the last few. And so we really wanted to highlight that and basically celebrate all of the work that's done across our district, because when you think about graduation rate, this is not just a high school accomplishment. This really is the accomplishment of our entire district. For the students that are in our pre-K classes all the way up through K through 12, each teacher has an impact on students being able to walk across that stage. And when you think about all of the efforts that our parents put into supporting their students and our community to make sure that we have the resources, and we are very privileged to be able to offer what we do here in Salina Public Schools, because it is the work of teachers, counselors, administrators, the board, everybody in this room that supports that graduation rate. And it's because of the resources that we dedicate to our schools and making sure that we have programming that we're evaluating and looking at each and every year to make sure that it's impacting all students. I would also like to highlight, a little bit about our subgroups. And so when you think about graduation rate, so that looks at all of the students together. but we also can drill down into the data and drill down into the different subgroups. And so if we look at this particular table here, we are looking at the graduation rate in 2017 for our different subgroups, and then also the specific graduation rate for 2021. And so this just kind of highlights both of those years, so kind of when we started this 5-year process, or the last 5 years, and then where we're at today. And so what you see there is I really wanted to highlight the growth or the increase that we see. And so in 2017, for example, males had an 83.5% graduation rate. In 2021, that same subgroup of students, so looking at male students, had a rate of 87.5, and so really that's an increase of 4% in comparison of 2017 to 2021. And so I just wanted to show that, you know, it is the energies and the efforts of the programming, the resources, and looking within ourselves and saying, okay, how can we impact to make sure that each and every student walks across our stage? So again, this is just a quick academic highlight of our graduation rate over the last 5 years, and to also show you that we do look at different subgroups to be able to say, what are the things that we can have in place to support all students? Any questions? Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Rector. The next item on our agenda would be approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the minutes of the March 8th, 2022 regular meeting, the personnel report as amended, the financial reports including the March bills list, the February treasurer's report, the February investment report, the February journal entries, also to improve the encumbrance listings, to Frontline Technology for the annual maintenance agreement renewal for the applicant tracking, professional learning management, employee evaluation management, absence, substitute, and time solution system in the amount of $99,325.58, to EMS Link for the annual maintenance agreement renewal for the Alio Financial Accounting and Human Resources System in the amount of $36,030.73, to Jones Gillum Renz in the amount of $59,500 for professional design services for the Heartland Program's kitchen renovation, to M Squared Architects in the amount of $75,000 for professional design services for the South High student parking lot replacement, to Johnson Controls in the amount of $48,744.84 for the replacement of the intercom system at Lakewood Middle School, to U.S. Foods for a projected cost of $1,990,000 for food and nutrition services as the prime vendor contract from August 1, 2022 to July 31, 2023. To Highland Dairy in the amount of $320,000 for projected cost for food and nutrition services from July 21, 2022 through June 30th of 2023. To BD4 Distributing, Inc. for a projected cost of $26,000 for the chemical contract with Food and Nutrition Services from July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. To Paul's Enterprises, Inc. in the amount of $50,000 for projected total expenses for equipment and repairs and maintenance for food and nutritional services during the 2022-2023 school year. To PBL Works for project-based learning summer trainings in the amount of $42,900. To Brain Pop for the annual renewal to provide services to grades K through 8 in the amount of $26,981.10. To Illuminate Education for the evidence-based assessment system in the amount of $29,900. To Mastery Connect for the online assessment software system in the amount of $24,774.25. To Ingenuity in the amount of $51,823 for the renewal of the instructional software for online instruction. To approve the Lakewood Robotics request to apply for a grant with the Dane G. Hansen Community Grant Fund in the amount of $7,148, to approve the Kansas Early Head Start Home Visitation Grant application in the amount of $204,000 with no match required, to approve the Kansas Early Head Start Child Care Partnership Grant application in the amount of $642,500 with no match required, and to approve the Federal Head Start Early Head Start Part 1303 grant application for one-time activities in response to COVID-19 for $143,562 for the restroom addition for 5 Head Start classrooms and $570,731 for the Head Start kitchen expansion. Is there a motion regarding the consent agenda? Ms. Zimmerman?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Ms. Cusso seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, the next item on our agenda is public forum. Mr. Farber, you've asked to speak at public forum regarding academic excellence.
Mr. President and Board, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I do remember the rules, if that's what you were looking for on that list. I was waiting. I'll make sure I behave tonight. I want to follow up on something that we discussed, or I brought up several months ago, and that's about the funding for our students and the reciprocal academic grades and rankings in our state. It seems, and just to revisit the idea just briefly, it seems like we're not getting the correct return on investment for each of our students. I've heard some of the reasoning as to some of our students are getting free lunches. I believe that was brought up a few months ago, and perhaps because they are in that classification of getting free lunches, that brings down our academic scoring, and I don't know that I buy into that altogether. If we had free lunches back when I went to school, I would have been in that program, but I was able to graduate at the top of my class many years ago. I appreciate the graduation rate increases that we saw an example of just a few moments ago, but at what cost do we increase our graduation rate? 20 years ago, our standards were dumbed down with No Child Left Behind. The state education board is trying to dumb those standards down again, if you'll allow me to use that phrasing, so that we can get our graduation rate even higher and even higher and even higher. But as is shown, of those who graduate from a Kansas high school, 71% of those graduates who chose to attend a secondary institution of learning, a college, 71% of our Kansas graduates had to take a remedial math or English class in order to get into their college placement. We are failing our students with our academic excellence. Again, as I said several months ago, I don't know the answer. I asked all of you guys for maybe some recommendations, some ideas as to how we can increase that ranking and try to help our students more after they leave the high school classes. And I haven't heard one single idea to try to help our students get better academically. If it's and I've heard the idea that a lot of our students are not in the college prep track, that they're going into trade school tracks, and that's fine. I think that's a wonderful opportunity. I think that's a great opportunity. However, we still need to prepare them for life in the real world. If they are still going into a trade school direction, that's great, but they're still going to have to budget their checkbook. They're still going to have to live a life. They're still going to have a family. And I would still love to see some ideas from our school board or superintendent or whoever can help in this regard as to what we can do to better prepare our children for when they leave USD 305, when they leave the high school classes. So if anybody has any ideas on that, I'd love to hear those. And thanks again for giving us this time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Farber. Okay, the next item we have on our agenda is our action agenda with Superintendent Exline. Looks like the first thing is involving esports.
Okay, so during the last meeting, the athletic directors presented a proposal on esports, and the recommendation of the USD 305 Athletic Board is that we go ahead and add esports to the high school athletic offerings. I want to highlight just a few things for you to remind you that funding for this activity would come from the athletic advertising money. We're talking about $9,000 per school to fund this, and there is ample money in that athletic advertising fund. Our community has been very generous, and that athletic advertising has gone over very well. So there is ample money there to do that. The athletes in esports would be required to meet all eligibility requirements, just like any other activity. It would be a co-ed sport, open to both boys and girls who meet the requirements to participate. And we're recommending that we use Play, and I think you say Play VS. And the reason that we are recommending that platform is that it is highly likely that when Keisha brings esports on, that is the platform that they will use. There are 2 seasons of 8 to 10 weeks each. And we really feel like esports would engage a group of students that maybe aren't engaged in other areas. And we think that that engagement is very positive for students and a way for them to get more out of high school. So our recommendation at this time would be for you to approve that addition.
Okay. So at this time, we'll move to discussion of the board. Any questions, comments, concerns, pieces there? I would say just in relation to the comments we had a moment ago, the ability to engage students in the school and push them to meet those eligibility requirements and things like that. I think that would be, we've got to find ways to engage students at multiple levels. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a segment that maybe has been frowned upon over time. People who are playing video games, and now you can go to college and do it, get a scholarship for that. Mm-hmm. So obviously looking at alternatives for that. Any other questions or comments from other board members? Mr. Bandry, or Dr. Bandry, I'm sorry.
Either one works. So I appreciated the discussion at the last agenda. I asked a few questions, I got good answers, and I've pondered it over the last month, and I'm very comfortable with the proposal for many of the reasons just described. So with that, I'd make a motion that we approve the addition of esports at the high schools beginning with the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Bandry. We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Grant, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. The next item we have is unified bowling, also with Superintendent Exline.
Okay, this is another way to expand opportunities for students, and our athletic board is recommending that we add what is called unified bowling. To remind you, unified bowling is a team of 3 to 5 students. It is a mix of students who have intellectual disabilities and students who are general education students. And so it is meant as a way to build a more inclusive environment and to allow a group of students that don't have access to co-curricular activities to have that access. Again, the athletes would have to meet eligibility requirements. And all competitions, they are telling me, follow the Baker format. And what that does is it tells you that the athlete that has intellectual disabilities bowls certain frames, and the general education partners bowl certain frames, so that we have everybody participating. The total cost on this is $8,694, so right at that $9,000 mark. And what we're recommending is a cooperative agreement between Central and South,
At some point, we may need to expand to a program at each one of the high schools, but we think to start that a cooperative program would be the best way to go. And as interest builds, then we would expand if needed. So at this time, my recommendation to the board would be to approve that if that is something that you can support.
Okay, so bring that back to the board. Any further discussion or comments regarding the unified bowling? Ms. Zimmerman?
I move that we approve the addition of unified bowling at the high schools beginning with the 2022-2023 school year.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Dr. Bandre seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Good for kids. Thank you.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is with Mr. Upson regarding capital improvement plan.
Hello and good evening. As you recall, last month I briefed the capital improvement plan in detail, and I'm here today to ask for any questions. If there's no questions, I would ask that you make a motion to approve that, and we can get on with another year of capital improvements.
Okay. Bring the capital improvement plan back, Mr. Grant.
Mr. President, I move we approve the 2022-2023 capital improvement plan as presented.
Ms. Casso seconds. Any further discussion? Ms.
I will
Zimmerman.
just say that I just think it's terrific that we have this plan so well written out. We hear of other districts that run into issues they hadn't been thinking about, roofs, floors, HVAC systems, and there they are for us, right there on the plan. Thank you.
I would
concur.
echo that.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Bandry.
I concur. Thank you, Ann.
I would echo that, and I would also, I spent Friday evening with a graduate of Slanted Central who just graduated from an engineering section over at K-State, and he's gone to work for a firm in Kansas City, and he's going to be putting plans like this together for school districts, and we were talking about that. I said, I got somebody you probably need to meet. So other districts are going to be
Maybe I need to meet him.
consulting for the services that you've put together here for us, Mr. Upson. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is board policy with Ms. Wright.
Yeah. Good evening. At our March board meeting, we initiated this policy review for this school year. We ran through the proposed changes for policies and discussed each one and the reasons for those changes. Tonight, we're back for the second reading under board policy. Are there any questions related to those policies again this evening? Then I would recommend the motion to approve the policies as amended.
Okay, Mr. Grant,
Mr. President, I move we approve the policy revisions as presented.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Zimmerman seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item takes us back to Ms. Rector as we go through handbooks.
I bring to you tonight the elementary school handbook, and I met with all of the elementary school principals, and we do not have any proposed changes to the 22-23 handbook except for yearly dates and personnel changes. And so I would recommend that you approve the 22-23 elementary handbook with those changes.
Okay, bring it back to the board. Ms. Zimmerman?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2022-2023 elementary handbook as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Seems like if we approved it last year and there's no changes, we ought to be in good shape, right?
Well, things can happen in a year. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Chromebook policy, Ms. Rector.
So we reviewed the one-to-one Chromebook handbook, and there are no changes. Our Chromebooks are provided to the students in the same format that they have been for several years, and so I don't bring to you any changes, and so I would recommend that you approve the handbook.
Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move we approve the 2022-2023 Chromebook handbook as presented.
We have a motion. Ms. Casso seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Now to Superintendent X-Line for the athletic handbook.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We're on a roll here. There are a couple changes because of what you just approved with esports and unified bowling, but the rest of the athletic handbook would stay exactly as it was. The only thing that we would change is to add the coaching positions for those two athletic activities that you just added.
I might ask a question if I could.
Yes.
We added girls wrestling a couple years ago. Do we foresee any time in the future a coach specifically for that? I know a lot of times those tournaments are held on different sides of the state and things.
Right now, we are using an assistant coach to deal with that. Yes, I think that as that program is growing, and anybody that attended the state wrestling could see that program is gaining popularity very quickly. And so there may come a time when we actually do need to add a coach specifically for that. Right now, we do have the ability, once the season starts, if we have enough interest, we go ahead and add a coach because we're not adding a new program. And so based upon supervision needs, safety needs, the athletic board does review those and make decisions if we need to add coaching for those specific sports. Sometimes that happens at middle school track. If we have many, many kids come out for supervision, we need to add another coach. And so depending on numbers, that may happen. But we would not be adding a new position, if you will. We would just be adding another assistant, if that makes sense.
Very good, thank you. Is there a motion regarding the athletic handbook or other questions? Dr. Bander.
I move we approve the 2022-23 athletic handbook as presented.
Mr. Gardner seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. All right, the next item on our agenda is with Dr. Stevens regarding I saw Dwight here earlier. I don't know if he did that on purpose, Dr. Stevens, or...
That's okay, I've got it memorized. While we're waiting for this to load up, I just have to start with, in a moment of extreme weakness and fragility, one day I thought, we ought to collapse the handbooks of both middle schools and high schools. I thought, that'll be a good idea. Easier said than done. So Winston Churchill once said that perfection is the enemy of progress. And over the past 4 months, while all four head principals and their administrators, and I have been working to create one middle school handbook and one high school handbook. This process has not been easy. While it has not been perfect, and is indeed far from perfect, and we're kind of in a state of constant change, which I'll get into a little bit later here in a second, I wanted to let you know that we are making progress. And the intention of doing this, I think, is that we have to be okay with embracing that there are going to be things that are different when we're looking at the totality of taking 150 pages down to 77 so that we can have a consistent and clear handbook for both middle schools and high schools that's the same. So again, doing this has been a lot easier said than done, as typically all good things that we work on can be. Okay, well, this computer is now not liking me at all, so I'm going to have, see if we can get the user password here, and we'll pull it up. But while we're doing that, I kind of want to walk you through a couple of the major changes. First and foremost, pulling 2 high schools together and also looking at 2 middle schools, we've had to process a lot of changes. So to make this very simple for everybody to understand, and I kind of wonder if I shouldn't just have Mrs. Howard push the button, given my given my unluckiness here on this. Okay, so I'll pull up just a couple of things that I want you to kind of note. When this process is done, again, there will be 1 middle school handbook for 305 and 1 high school handbook. So we'll move from 4 individual handbooks where we're trying to constantly keep updating policies that are changing all the time, programs, et cetera. Okay. Okay, so there's 3 really general overarching changes that we're looking at. Okay, and the first one is what I kind of call consolidated handbook changes. Working with the principals, we looked at the policies. We tried to find kind of what was the better worded policy if it was different, or what were the exact same, but we just simply needed to pull them together. And we did see a lot of differences between all of the secondaries, not major ones on policy, but just some nuances that were different. And when you think about the administrative transitions that have happened over the course of the original authorship of these handbooks, it wouldn't be a big stretch. And we've pulled these before the board, and we've tried to make things as similar, obviously, with actual policies because of the wording and stuff, but there's just some nuances to it that were different. The second type of change were reordered items into categories. And so when we did this, I tried to step back and get a little bit of input from a variety of people that are parents to say, does this make sense, the way it's ordered? And so I kind of put on a parent hat and took my administrator hat off and annoyed my wife as we talked about this and tried to find ways to try to kind of see it in a different context. And then the third type of change are specific language updates, which I'll take you through briefly. But for the first one here, we'll start with, and this is a PDF, so I'm kind of learning how to scroll here on the fly, our consolidated handbook changes. As you go through the 100 and some pages, you find examples where it's building specific, meaning the west parking lot at South High versus the south parking lot at Central. So anytime we saw building-specific language, we melded that together just to identify, okay, this is Lakewood's bus drop-off, this is Central's change, et cetera. So a lot of these consolidated handbook changes are simply just saying the language is the same under the provision, but it had a little bit of building-specific items. We're going to clear those up and put them in there and make sure that we have it so that it is applicable to each building. And of that, I think when I went through and did some of the find and replace items, we had about 100 different kinds of changes like that, but they're very simple, just making sure that we have both buildings addressed. The second type of change is reordered items. We did look at the categories, and I tried to kind of come up with something that was a little bit more clear or logical in the order. I think in some cases in the past, we pulled out language and just added in there. We did some reformatting items on the handbooks themselves so that we have subheadings. So as we're adding language in the future, we're not spending all the time repaginations. We can actually do that with an update on a table of contents, and that's going to save time. So the reordered items that we put in there, we have the categories of daily items. What are things a parent needs to know right away? Bell schedule, items about the hallways, et cetera. Then we have academics, graduation, recognitions, activities, athletics and visitors, things that kind of flow together, and student conduct and discipline. And then we also have drills, safety weather, for like inclement weather procedures. And then there were a lot of board policies that were kind of stuck in the language. We wanted to kind of pull those out and put them in an order of most relevant to, and when I say most relevant, they're all relevant, but some of them are used more by parents than others. And so we reordered that process and then updated our table of contents. So that was kind of the second reordered items into categories. And then the third part, which we'll get into some specific language updates, we had some things we needed to update and clean up a little bit. And I want you to know that every time the Kansas Association of School Boards updates the board policies, we have to kind of go back through and put that language in the handbook to make sure that that's up to date as well. So there may be some board policy changes that you have approved tonight. We'll work through that and Mrs. Howard and make sure that we have those updated in the handbook each year as they change laws and policies and procedures, et cetera. So this third part is a specific language update that I want to talk you through a couple of big changes. And if it's easy, I'll probably go through these changes, and then if you have questions at the end, we can kind of refer back to them. That way I can kind of walk you through that piece if that's all right with the board. The first one is on our cut policy. We wanted to make sure that we are updating this with our existing practice. Currently, in our policy, a cut would count towards truancy, but as we have had conversations with the Saline County Attorney's Office and as we work through the truancy process, they really are looking at that as a disciplinary issue. If the student is at school and not in class, the court is obviously concerned about the students who are not on campus. They're not at school, and as we are too. And so we wanted to kind of clean that up to remove that from our data and our process so that it was actually representing kind of what the county attorney's office and our courts have said they're looking at with truancy. I've spent a lot of time talking about the individual plan of study and past board presentations, and one of the things I wanted to bring up here is we currently have a practice where students can apply for a variety of different types of items, and the individual plan of study impacts that. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that it's noted in our handbook that students during extended learning opportunity do have a responsibility to create an individual plan of study as required as one of the foundations of the state of Kansas, but also in helping us as we're planning on selecting courses with intentional purpose of exploration. So we've added that language in under the block schedule and ELO. Another change is under the counseling service. Old language referred to this as a educational planning for the future. We wanted to make the wording more applicable and congruent with existing structure, so we have inserted an individual plan of study in place of just educational planning, where it talks about on here kind of a plan for graduation. So we've added that language in. The other place is on student class loads. As we look at circumstances where maybe students want to take classes outside of USD 305, we've had a lot of expanded programs like polycats, et cetera. We want to make sure that students are doing that with some intentionality and there is some planning in place. So again, we've added that wording, has an updated individual plan of study. And then under flex schedule guidelines, currently right now a student can apply for flex schedule, the principal can approve that. We wanted to add the wording in there that the student and the student to review the updated IPS so that they're working with the principal and we're just not making a decision to change our schedule without any intentionality, that there's a plan of what that means and where that's going to go. And another piece of that is early graduation specifically as well. We certainly don't want students graduating early and not having that next step. So as we're looking at success data that shows what happens to our students 2 years after they leave high school, we definitely have little control once we find out what happened to them after they leave our building. So I call that a lag measure. A lead measure is what are they planning and talking about while they're in high school? That is within our control. And there's some incredibly important decisions that are made. We want to make sure that there is a plan in process, that there is parent engagement, and that's not just something somebody fills out and kind of moves on, especially before applying for something as important and life-changing as early graduation. So that wording is very consistent with the V. Scott Solberg research that I've mentioned in past presentations talking about building bridges. and we wanted to make it added on there as well, so we have it. This also goes with early graduation procedures, that the guidance counselor is working with the student and the parents here to consult and develop an individual plan of study. So most of those are what I kind of call the IPS, additional language. And in this piece here, foreign exchange students, we sometimes, as principal, I get phone calls asking about, hey, what are the requirements for the foreign exchange program? And so what we wanted to do is add that language in there for more information related to board policy requirements for hosting a foreign exchange student. Please see USD 305 board policy. Sorry, my vision isn't as good, and I don't dare move this computer. JQKA and JQKA-R. And in that, it does go in more specificity for parents to help so that they've got more clarity on what's going to happen with that. Okay, so I want to kind of shift gears here a little bit on some of the specific language changes and talk to you about a new age of challenge here when it comes to phone numbers. So looking specifically, we've had some phone numbers that change quite a bit, and we are always trying to keep our eyes on that and make those adjustments. This is one of them. The Kansas State Department of Education has made some changes to some of their phone numbers, and of course some of this language has been around for a while. So we're always trying to kind of look at that and make sure that we have updated those. And that is one of them that is there. Phone numbers are also, we're finding, becoming obsolete for a variety of reasons because of the internet and the accessibility of so much information. Okay, and that is the last part of what I have on the slides. What I want to also talk to you in step with that is, as we have had conversations, we've found things in the past that aren't really applicable, okay? So, and these are past changes. You can go back and look in the board minutes and probably see where we were having problems with pagers. And pagers then became passé, and it became something else. And so we're trying to find that we're updating our language. And I got to thinking a little bit as we started looking at the student resources that we have had. Within days, within weeks, we're seeing some problems with it. One, I think if you ask kids what the yellow pages are, they probably don't even know what they are, okay? And so then you start looking at the resources that we have provided in there, and there's been a couple of big changes that have happened. So a few of them are this. One, these numbers, much like the one that we have here for KSDE, are not stable. They can change. Web pages are not stable. They too can change. I don't know if any of you got a phone call within the last 2 weeks, but there was an urgent message I received just this morning on my phone number. And I wanted to make sure I share it with everybody in the room because my car's warranty was expired. So if you have that happen, you want to make sure. And you know, when I answered it, it was a local number. So I think we're seeing some of the problems with this. There's some unethical businesses that have even hijacked 1-800 numbers or created numbers of various ways. And we can't change it. We update the board packet or the student handbook once a year. So what I would probably say, another thing that has changed in this area is if there's an emergency, everybody has been trained to call 911. And the FCC has been working the last 15 to 20 years incorporating something that New York Telephone Services knew back in the 70s, an entity called 211. And 211 is a clearinghouse currently right now that is nationwide, in which about 95% of community resources are using. If you call that number right now, United Way and a variety of other entities are providing a service to where they can obtain assistance for local and national social service programs, and it simplifies that process. So given that, one of the imperfections that existed as I was looking at this document, and I was thinking, we really probably need to update, much like we removed the pagers from the language. In hindsight, we probably should just remove the yellow pages since, one, kids don't know what they are, the numbers aren't stable, the web pages aren't stable, and just as our car needs its warranty updated, there's unethical practices that are happening with regards to those numbers. And then finally, 211 is something that most people can use, or they'll use the internet to find what they need. As I have said, I invite all of you to look over the handbooks. As Winston Churchill said, The enemy of, or the perfection is the enemy of progress. We are making progress, but we have a lot of work still as we're looking at it. We did get it into a format where both buildings can agree, and I absolutely applaud our secondary administrators for their time in having a caucus and going back and forth and talking about what do we want to keep, what do we want to change, and what are our recommendations. We will continue to do that. If you have additional things that you see that you want to ask me about, you can always email me. And I will take those into consideration and put those in place for the May board packet. All in all, what I would say is an extremely important document to help our district students, parents, and staff and administrators understand the daily operations of our schools, the academic requirements, the disciplinary procedures, the safety measures, and various other policies. And at this time, if you have any questions, I'll open up to those questions.
Dr. Bander?
I don't have any questions per se right now. I need to spend some time reading through everything, but I appreciate everybody's work pulling that all together. There's a lot of information there and clearly very important. So I will read it.
Thank you.
I think I like the consistency across the district.
Yeah.
As we go through. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Stevens.
Okay.
This time I'm going to ask that we take a 5-minute recess, and we will come back at 6:41. Right, the next item on our agenda is dealing with materials adoption. Dr. Snyder with elementary reading.
Good evening. In August of 2021, the research for high-quality reading programs began. Dr. Trish Bandre and I set out independently to identify the highest quality of materials available for our students in K-5. After digging into research, Dr. Bandre and I came together to discuss our findings. Although we did our research completely separate, we landed on the same 4 programs. Excuse me. We landed on the same 4 programs that research indicates the opportunity for all students to learn and grow, that are aligned with state standards and meet our board policy criteria. After the top 4 programs were selected, it was critical that we got those in the hands of our teachers. With the help of Amy Langen, she reached out to the 4 vendors and immediately began gathering materials and digital access for teachers. Dr. Trish Bandre and I created a document where teachers could find links to all of the ed reports that reviewed the research for the 4 programs that we were going to look at. The document also included the evaluation forms that we were going to have teachers fill out on each of the 4 programs, and a rotation schedule for each program. That way, it was getting in each building was going to have an opportunity to look at the programs. The document also included digital access for the teachers so that they could utilize the digital piece throughout the entire process. We began receiving questions from teachers. So at that time, we added one more link, and that was a place where teachers could log on at any time and ask questions of us so we could get answers to them about the different programs that they were looking at. Each company also provided a webinar that gave an overview of what the program entails. Teachers had the opportunity to log in and watch those webinars, but they were also recorded and could be accessed at any time. All materials were sent back to the Board of Education office on March 11th, and then we went into spring break. Prior to leaving for spring break, we started getting some questions of, you know, we looked at this program independently. It would be really nice if we could look at all 4 programs and set them side by side to look at those before we made our final selection. And so from March 21st to the 23rd, from 3:45 to 5:45, there was an open house where all of the materials were in the corner conference room, and teachers could come and look at all 4 programs one final time before they made their selection. At the conclusion of the open house on March 23rd, a link was sent out to all of the teachers that completed an evaluation form for those materials. And with that link then, they were able to make their choice. Their first choice, their second choice, their third choice, their fourth choice for the program that they were interested in. All of the votes were due on at the end of the day on March 25th. Into Reading by Hutton Mifflin Harcourt was the top choice among the 4 programs that the teachers voted on. Into Reading meets the expectations of board policy. The instructional materials meet the expectation of alignment and usability. The program is high quality and engaging. It's rigorous and organized to support that knowledge building of our students. The materials include questions, tasks, lessons, and practice that support students' development of reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and also students' communication and critical thinking skills. Into Reading provides a family room that parents or caregivers can access via their child's login that they will receive. The family room provides on-demand resources, so who's ever working with a student at home in the evening can support their child or their children. The recommendation is to adopt Into Reading for our K-5 reading program. All of the materials are here in the instructional coaches suite at the Board of Education office. Dr. Bandre, Trish Bandre, really deserves a huge thank you for all the organization she did to make sure that teachers could make an informed decision when they were reviewing the materials. I also need to thank Amy Langen, who's the one that reaches out to all the vendors, asks for the materials to get them here in time for teachers to really dig in and either try lessons out in their classroom or at least look through what the program has to offer. Patty Fiorello is my assistant, and she was very helpful in organizing all the boxes of materials when they came in, organizing them, and then get them out to the buildings for the teachers to look at. We did have 124 teachers vote, and there were only 3 that could have voted that did not. So we had excellent participation throughout the process. And it really is teachers getting their hands on it and making the decision. They're the content experts. They know those, the kids the best, and we really want them to be making that decision. What questions do you have for me tonight?
Ms. Zimmerman?
I'm curious, did it win by a landslide, or was it were they all pretty good?
You know, it was, there were 2 top choices compared to the other 2 that were much higher as far as when votes came in, but into reading, definitely, there was definitely more votes, by quite a few.
Dr. Bandry?
I perhaps should know the answer to this, but I don't. Is this curriculum good for 1 year, 2 years? What's the?
So when we look at curriculum, we look at it for a 6-year adoption process. And so the purchase of this will be for 6 years.
Some of my questions are getting answered as we're going through these, so I'm checking them off. When we talk elementary, what grades are we talking that this curriculum will apply through?
It'll be kindergarten through 5th grade.
And the last time we did, this is a significant adoption, is my understanding. Was
It is.
about 6 years ago, the last time we did that? Okay. And I understand funding for that is, it's not like a surprise fund, it's budgeted funds.
Lisa's excellent.
We have a textbook account, and that is an account where we build up money over time. Just like with the capital improvement plan that Chris presented earlier, we do the same thing on the instructional resources side. And so we are saving money in anticipation of these large adoptions. Elementary reading is the most expensive adoption we do. Other adoptions at, say, elementary math would be the next most expensive. But we know that every 6 years, we need to have at least this much money. So what you're going to see on the cash balances report is that we had a significant balance in that textbook fund. And now, as planned, we've depleted that fund. There will be a small balance left, and we'll start to build that up over time. No doubt you've noticed that this year we've done quite a few adoptions because Dr. Stevens actually presented several in the last couple months as well. So.
Any other questions at this time? Okay. If I was to ask, what would be the biggest difference between the current curriculum and this curriculum? Is there an easy way to Cliff Notes that?
Well, teachers had the opportunity to write comments as they voted. And so I brought, some comments with me. And one thing that they really liked about Into Reading is that it's not different pieces of the most important pieces that children need in their reading. It has all of it together in one program. So they're not pulling and, we need to do some writing, so they're going to this resource to pull. For small group reading, we're going to this resource. It really is a package deal, and they like that they'll be able to sit down with this resource. They'll have that consistency for those, instructional pieces for literacy that our young students need.
Ms. Schamberg?
On the earlier, the K and the first grade books, do they focus on the phonics or
So
how
K1,
do
2,
they-
phonics is a large piece of their learning
Okay.
that is included.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Snyder.
Thank you.
All right. Next item we have is with Tracy Hutton on Slanted Virtual Innovation Academy.
Good evening. As you know, I'm Tracy Hutton, the principal of Slanted Virtual Innovation Academy. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our recommendation for a new K through 12 online program to deliver curriculum. I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we're requesting this change, our process for evaluating the curriculum, and then our recommendation and why we're recommending this particular provider. So our why. I thought that Dr. Stevens had coined the term perfection is the enemy of progress, but I guess that was Winston Churchill. I've heard him say it so many times. But it is true, and this was, as our first year, we definitely have not been perfect, but we are progressing, and I can't wait to maybe at some point in the future update you on what we've done this year. But one of our biggest challenges is the online curriculum that we were using, which was we were using two. Edgenuity at the 9 through 12 level, which is what we use across the district for PBD, and it's totally appropriate for that. And I'll talk a little bit why we want to step away from that at the high for us. We also used Acellus at the K through 8th grade level. So one of the reasons why we're proposing a new curriculum is because we found, we're not a PVD program. We are an alternative, not an alternative, sorry. We are another option. And so we really wanted to step into our innovation name and that we are here to build innovative thinking into kids. And that's really tough to do with a platform that kind of runs itself. And so we really wanted to get our teachers the ability to really get in there and change some things and add and really enhance it. And with Edgenuity and Acellus, there really wasn't that opportunity. Another issue that we faced was, different platforms, K to 12 was difficult, and so we were speaking different languages between, we're talking about elementary, we're talking about secondary, and so a K through 12 platform, no matter, families that have kids in the different levels, they would be able to understand we're talking about the same thing, K through 12, and so we're speaking the same language. And then another issue was as we're building and we're adding those project-based things and those innovative things into the curriculum, because we didn't want to stop there, we used a learning management system that was Google Classroom. And that's great, and Google Classroom is great, but then you have parents logging into Acellus for this kid, plus Google Classroom, plus Edgenuity, plus Google Classroom. And so it got, there was a lot of confusion. So, and so the software that we ended up choosing helped solve that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We looked, so we've been kind of searching, all 7 teachers have looked, and we've just scoured what's out there, what fits us. We talked to other virtual schools that have been around longer. We found that nobody quite does it the way we do it, but we listened to their input on ones that they've tried and those things. We got demo accounts and we dug into. We finally kind of narrowed it down to 2, and we went through the board policies, the board recommendations of what makes a good program, and we evaluated them to them. We ultimately decided on one, and the biggest, I think, difference between the 2, because price-wise they were kind of similar, was just the engagement aspect. Like, would kids interact with this, because that's a big challenge when you're in virtual and you're at home. So that's the one that just kind of stood out, and our teachers ended up leaning that way. And so we also looked at, some of the other things, like, do they have balanced views? How are they vetted to make sure they're factual? Are they flexible, are they user-friendly, and are they Chromebook compatible? Because that's kind of our lifeblood. Everything has to work on the Chromebook. So our recommendation then is for Accelerate Education. One of the best things that comes with Accelerate Education is a really robust learning management system. And so a learning management system is similar to what Google Classroom is, but instead of going to different places, it pulls it all into one. So they have one login. We can input everything in there. Teachers can go in and modify things. They can add interactive things. They can take out things. They can differentiate it for different students. They can really do what we're trying to move forward and kind of individualize learning. There's so many tools for them to be able to do that. For parents, because parents are such an important part of a virtual, they're our partners, they can go in and be able to understand and see, and the reports that they get and the oversight they have is so much better. It's Chromebook compatible mostly. There are a few of the high-tech electives that they, that we will have to come up with some other solutions for, but by far, most everything is Chromebook compatible. It is K through 12. It is user-friendly. There are lots of electives. That was another thing. We have a lot more electives to choose from. So our recommendation then is that we adopt Accelerate Education for K-12 for our virtual school. And I think that's all I had. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Ms. Zimmerman.
I'm curious about electives. So you can have an elective on anything, and you don't have to have a teacher who knows about it? Does it teach you without them?
No, our electives, we pretty much still have to stick a lot with the electives that the district offers. They're pretty compatible to that. When it comes to the electives, though, since we don't have 10 different certified teachers for each of those things, we have a lot of those electives are more of the monitoring, which is kind of like what Edgenuity is. It's more of a monitor. So on those things, we can kind of step back and let the program do that, and then we can pair those students if they have questions, or we can pair those with another 305 teacher that might be able to answer that would be willing to answer those questions. So when it comes to those electives, our teachers are more monitors as opposed to the core where they're going to be strong. But thank you for that question.
Mr. Gardner.
I've taken a few online courses, didn't really care for them, because a lot of it has to do with the instructor. So as it relates to the academic performance under the old curriculum, and you're wanting to change to this curriculum, what impact are you looking to get by changing the format that you're going to?
So with this curriculum, our teachers are going to be able to have more of that personal influence in there, that personal touch, where, in Edgenuity and Acellus, it was whatever video, and those things are still there, don't get me wrong. My teachers are amazing, but they're not everywhere. They can't do everything, but so we still do we still have to rely on that. But with this curriculum, they're able to embed those things that make learning relevant, that do what good teachers do, add those projects, add those interactive things, so that it makes it so much more personal and so much more robust than just, the traditional, everything comes directly from the computer. Did that answer your question? It's very difficult until you see it. It's difficult to explain because, our ultimate vision is to, change the world through the innovation of our students. And so we really want to build innovative thinking in there. And so not every, canned curriculum can do that. And so we really rely on our teachers, and we train our teachers to really look at what builds innovative thinking and where, so they go through all of that and they add and they have their hands on it to really make it even better than what you can just buy.
So you're saying that there was an area in the curriculum that you felt needed to be enhanced?
In any curriculum, because there's no perfect curriculum. And so with this, we have the ability to go in and really make it ours.
Okay, so I guess the thing that I'm really trying to pull out of you is, this is going to fix this. This is going to address this. Otherwise, I don't know why we would change if it's not going to fix something that we want to fix.
I understand your question, I'm sorry. So with the existing Edgenuity and Acellus, there is no ability to really modify anything. There's ability to hide some things, but there's really no ability to add, to supplement, to bring in any other activities and to really personalize it. It's just kind of, it is what it is, and our teachers are more monitors. They can kind of see how a student's doing, they can, reach out to them, but they really don't have the ability to really get in there and really tailor things, differentiate things to different kids and add, the things that, good teachers can really put in there that, when any content provider is putting things together, they kind of have a global perspective, and teachers can really get in there and make it personal.
Ms. Schamberg?
How many students do you have in the innovative?
Oh, yeah, thank you for asking. So currently we have, I believe, the last time I checked, it was about 105 students in our school. It's we've had a larger number than that early on, but with some moving, and when you're a small school, small movements. A family of 3 just recently moved out of state, so that impacts us. But yeah.
Do you foresee an increase next year?
We anticipate an increase. Virtual school is not for everyone, and some of our families found out that maybe this isn't a fit. But then we have calls every day for others wanting to get in, and I think a lot of people don't know about us yet. And so as we get out there and people hear about us, I anticipate that we will remain pretty steady, if not maybe grow a little bit.
Is it possible for your teachers to build a relationship with the students, or is it mostly,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. So that's part of our vision, is that we're not truly a virtual, we don't think virtual needs to be isolated. And so we provide that opportunity not only for the synchronous relationship building, but we have typically several times a week you'll see kids on campus doing activities, a lot of STEM activities or community-based activities, field trips, all kinds of I can't even name all the things that we've done. I'm so proud of what we've done this year. But yeah, there's a relationship building because we don't believe that virtual should be not only isolated, but also kids just sitting behind the computer all day. So part of our vision is bigger than that, and getting kids hands-on, getting kids out in the community.
Ms. Cussin?
I really appreciate you looking at the easy-to-use parent dashboard. I think this is a really big place across the board for USD 305. We've got to make sure our parents can have access. So good job in thinking that through. Is this something we were anticipating would be a budget item, a change in curriculum, or is this?
I will
Yes, we have money allocated for software. And so the first year out, we were using Edgenuity and we added Acellus. And so we knew that we may need to change. And so the encumbrance that you saw earlier for Edgenuity, that's to support our programs that are at the comprehensive high schools at South and Central. We did have money set aside in the budget for software.
Great, thank you.
That was actually a question I was going to ask. I've been wondering if somebody else would bring it up. As we move to this program here, do we foresee replacing Ingenuity in the other levels? It seems to be about $20,000 cheaper too, so.
The Edgenuity that we have at the two high schools, those programs have been vetted through the counselors and the teachers that utilize that program. And so with the performance-based diploma program, the Edgenuity coursework is really where they're working right now. And we've just looked at it and done some updates to make sure our scope and sequence and our courses are aligned. I have not heard that they're wanting to do anything different, but that is a conversation that we look at on a regular basis.
I would add to that on Edgenuity, you are buying a site license, so we're paying for that to be loaded at Central and at South and at DCP. And so it would be more expensive than the $35,000 when you're buying, and I can't tell you exactly what it would be, but when you're buying these kinds of programs, you really are buying typically for a site. Sometimes they will allow you to buy at a more expensive rate a district license, but with Edgenuity, we have to buy per place that it's used, so.
And I will just add, the role of the teacher with Edgenuity is a little bit removed as opposed to this curriculum. In this curriculum, the teacher is going to have more hands-on, not only being able to edit, but also the teacher does more grading and more feedback and things like that. So it's a little more teacher hands-on than we can allow Edgenuity to be, because for Edgenuity, for that PBD program, it's a bit of a different animal. It needs to kind of run itself, and Edgenuity is totally appropriate for that. But for what we're wanting to do, we need to have the teachers a little more hands-on, a little more right there and interacting with those kids.
Are a majority of your students in middle school, high school, or do you have kindergarten, or what is the?
Yeah, so this year we started out, our middle school, high school numbers are much more than the elementary. And a lot of that's just due to the fact that at the elementary level, you really do have to have that parent, that learning coach right there for it to be successful. And so our numbers at semester, our middle school numbers grew a lot more than I anticipated, but we are still much higher at the high school and middle school level than at the elementary level.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hutton.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time this evening and all the work you've put into that. We started the virtual school as let's see what we can do, because we had a lot of demand for that after COVID. So thank you for exploring that for us. Special education update with Mr. Hayes.
Good evening. I want to give you a quick special education update on Opportunity Now, but I also wanted to, while I had the floor, go back and think about Shanna's presentation on graduation rate and point out the very significant increase in graduation rate for students with disabilities, and just acknowledge the work that's going into that. Those kids, the teachers and the paras, the work that they put in. Those kids, by definition, are they have challenges that make it difficult for them to succeed in school, and yet we are making good gains with that population. So I thought while I was doing an update, I'd highlight that. So quick update on restructuring of Opportunity Now, our therapeutic day school for the cooperative. Just thought I might review kind of the progress to this point. It's been kind of a 3-year process, and rationale for that, new people on the board, and just it's been a while. That was originally presented to the board in October of 2019, so it's been quite a while since we've talked about the restructuring of our day school program at Opportunity Now. Really, the way that evolved was, I'm very familiar with that program because that's kind of my baby. I started that program and was the principal of that program for 10 years. I would continually get feedback that as a high school, we should consider opening it up to other age levels. And then I moved into the assistant director position at the cooperative and got that feedback from other superintendents and principals, and not just teachers and families at that point. And so we really wanted to explore that possibility, and then the availability of the facility at Salina West came up, and that just made a lot of sense for us to move the high school, Opportunity Now High School, to Salina West, and that facility then offered the opportunity to expand to other age levels. So just kind of a review of the progression there. Year one of that three-year process, school year 2020-2021, we moved the long-standing high school Opportunity Now therapeutic program to Salina West. And then this year, in year two, in August, we opened the Opportunity Now middle school program for grades 6, 7, and 8. And then next year, we will be starting, or really it's a transition, a move of the TLC program, Therapeutic Learning Center program, from Meadowlark Ridge to Opportunity Now to have the day school model available at Opportunity Now for elementary school age kids. So we're kind of on the home stretch of this three-year plan to evolve Opportunity Now into a more comprehensive program for all grade levels. One notable change to the original plan that was presented in October of 2019 is really, at that time it was presented that elementary school would encompass grades 3 through 5. And through the course of kind of studying the functions of day school models, looking at other day schools, and really deciding that our focus was on the needs of kids, and that would be our primary target, and not the age of kids, we decided that we wanted to make it available to kindergarten through 12th grade, rather than saying if you're a kindergarten first and second grader and might need or benefit from this type of programming, you're not old enough yet. That was what I continued to encounter when it was only a high school, was that type of barrier. It really wasn't based on student needs, it was based on the parameters of the program. So we decided to eliminate that and say this will be a K-12 program rather than a 3rd grade through 12th grade program. So that's kind of an update on the restructuring of Opportunity Now at Salina West. Do you have any questions?
I might just ask quick, when I came on the board a few years ago, we were just doing the kindergarten all day, and that's when the alarming, we need a therapeutic kindergarten. But I guess we do have some new board members, and I guess, how would you define a therapeutic school? The differences that someone might expect with a therapeutic school versus a traditional school?
Oh, Jim, you're getting me started on Opportunity Now, and I could be up here a long time, so I'll try to restrain myself. But no, okay. It really is defined by the needs of the student, and it's one of the things that I think we struggle with and have over the years is that students that go to Opportunity Now, some have more significant or more outlandish needs that just, that's the reason that they can't be successful. They're the most severe, significantly socially, emotionally, behaviorally disabled students in our system, and in our 12 districts in our case. And that's really not the case. It's really defined by the fact that it's a mental health approach. We're in a partnership with Central Kansas Mental Health Center and a variety of area therapists that provide us with case management therapy, attendant care, those types of services and supports that are really the keys, the tools that make it, that are essential, not just a benefit, but essential to a student being successful in school. And in a day school model, that can be deployed in so much a different way. You're not trying to incorporate that very, very different philosophy that's very much centered around mental health services and the time devoted to that into a comprehensive, say, elementary school with 400 or 500 kids, or a high school that has 1,000 kids. The agility that it provides to really meet student needs. We have Once we get the elementary school there, I think we can expect 40 to 50 kids a year. That's a fraction of 1% of the population of our cooperative. We have about 14,000 total kids in our cooperative area. So it's a very, very tiny select group of kids who have very, very unique needs that the only way they can be successful in school is a very comprehensive mental health approach to their education. And that challenge, as much as I have lived and breathed least restrictive environment, the tenets of special education, that is the least restrictive environment for a very, very, very small subset of students. And it is an essential component of their being successful and eventually graduating from high school and hopefully having the tools to be successful in the community.
Any other questions? I think you're doing great work, Mr. Hayes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Back to Ms. Rector on textbooks and instructional materials.
I wanted to update the board on our book challenge for All Boys Aren't Blue. We just completed the second level appeal process, and just to kind of remind you of the process we've been through, it started with the basically complainant meets with the principal at an informal stage, and if resolution isn't achieved there, then it can go to the first level of appeal, which is a building level committee. And so there was a building level committee conducted, and the decision was to retain the book in the South High School library. That decision was appealed to the second level, and so we had a district-wide appeal committee that was appointed, and that committee was made up of 11 individuals. So the principal from Central High School was the chairperson, myself as the deputy superintendent, the coordinator of media services, and then the requirement was to have 2 teachers, 3 certified staff members, and 3 citizens. So we had a committee of 11 that met, and so we met to review the book, and they read the book in its entirety and looked at the entire passage, all of the passage together, and went through board policy. And the evaluation process or guidelines, to remind you, is that they needed to examine and evaluate the materials as a whole, not on the basis of passages pulled out of context. They needed to consider the district's policy, procedure, and philosophy for selection of textbooks and instructional materials. They needed to weigh the strengths and weaknesses and form opinions based upon the selection criteria, the appropriateness of the material to the reading ability and maturity levels of the student, and the relevance to the curriculum and educational goals of the school. So that committee met, and they were able to come to a decision. They created a report, and in that report, they identified that the book should be retained at both the South High School and Central High School media centers. And so that was the recommendation in regards to the book complaint. But one of the things that the committee did do through their evaluation of the book, they really wanted to also kind of look at it that broader sense and to think through of how kind of some of the information that we were receiving is that how could we look at ways that parents could provide individual oversight for their own student. And so that was part of the discussion for that committee. And so the committee looked at the different mechanisms that this district has in place for parents to be involved in looking at the reading materials that they are checking out from the media center. And so they were able to identify some aspects that are already in place in our system. One of those is that every student has a Destiny account, which is a library management system account. And so what that does is it basically, when a student checks out a book with their library card, it records that book. And so at any point in time, a parent can sit down with their child, with their student, and have them pull up their Destiny account and show them what book that they have checked out. Parents also have the ability to look up and read about any of the books through the Destiny system to be able to identify what the book is about and any kind of characteristics that they want to know more information. And we also know that at any point in time, a parent can contact the school library media specialist and be able to identify what book their student has checked out. So there are mechanisms in place to basically encourage and to have that conversation in the home of what is being read from the library and give students and the parents an ability to have those conversations. But within the committee, one of the things that we also wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we communicated all of the expectations and the different ways that parents have access and can generate conversation. And so one of the things that they decided upon is that they wanted to say, okay, we'll wonder if there is a time when a parent does want to have more oversight on what their child is checking out from the library. And so brainstormed about what that might look like and utilizing information that we know about our Destiny system and our communication system. And so really the committee also has made some recommendations in their report. And so based upon the ideas that were generated, the committee decided that information about the Media Center processes should be provided annually during the online enrollment process. That is one of those processes that every single parent or guardian has access to, in the sense that they have to enroll their students, and there's a series of different information that's provided. And so one of the things that they are suggesting is that during our enrollment process that we have some information in there about what is the ways that they can find out more about what their student is checking out from the Media Center. The other thing that was an idea that the group had and put the recommendation forth is to make sure that annually, at least one time a year, that every school would have information in their newsletter. So that's another mechanism of sharing information with parents, so that they would also identify, this is the way that you can engage in a conversation with your student about what materials that they have checked out from the library. And then from the kind of another aspect is that they also suggested that a process be developed allowing a parent to put in kind of a parent permission kind of mechanism in place to a book being checked out. One of the things that was important is to make sure that when there is concern from a parent and they want to have more oversight, we want to be able to work as a partnership with those parents. We also want to make sure that, you know, a parent is making choices for their own child and not necessarily making choices for everyone's child. And so as we were working through that, one of the things that they said is that could there be a mechanism put into place? And so we'll be working with the library media specialists to see if to basically put a process into place that a parent can notify the library and be able to say, I would like to have parental permission. And then through our Destiny system, if that student goes to check out a book, then they would need to have parent permission to be able to check out any book in our library. And the rationale for it being any book in the library is because really we want to make sure that we have that we look at the books from the totality of the Media Center has put in processes to review those books. And so it's not about putting individual labels on books or making decisions for those individual parents. If they want to have the decision to say, yes, my child can check out this book, then that would be a conversation that they have with their child and then communicate with the school that it is appropriate. But this would be for the families or for the parent that wants to have that oversight. And so that way it would be a parent choice, but it doesn't put a process into place that is basically is made for every student. This allows the parent that has concerns to have those kinds of conversations that they need to have as a parent with their own child. So just kind of in summary, from the committee report, the decision was made that the book would be retained at the South and the Central Media Centers. And so that was the determination by the committee in regards to the book challenge. The additional information about kind of putting processes into place, those are recommendations that the committee wanted to basically engage in and then also kind of put forth to the district for us to work with our media center specialists to be able to have those things into place. And those are things that we can move forward with, because anytime we can communicate with parents and give them the ability to interact with their own child and with the schools, we want to be able to do that. So we believe that that's a mechanism to give parents more choice, but also to leave the choice available for all students. And then if the complainants are not satisfied with the second level of appeal, they can go to the third level of appeal. The report did go to the superintendent, and so they can basically appeal with the superintendent. And what that means, and let me go ahead and read the process to you. What that means is that if the complainant is dissatisfied with the decision, a final appeal may be filed with the superintendent within 10 days of written receipt of the decision. And so the 3 complainants that we had at the second level did receive the written report in the mail. and so that was sent to them. They were also contacted by the chairperson of the committee to be expecting that report. So once they have that written report, there is a form that they can fill out. They would provide that to the superintendent, and then within 45 days of receipt of notice of appeal, the Board of Education reviews the appeal committee report and provides a hearing for the complainant. The Board of Education decision shall be final. And so if it does go to that level, the superintendent will be communicating, and then the process will be put into place for this final stage of the book complaint. Any questions?
Ms. Zimmerman?
Do we get to read the report, or is it somewhere in the public, or is that something we don't because we'll have to have the hearing if they appeal again? What about that?
You know, that's a good question in the sense, does the report go to you automatically? At this point, the report has gone to the superintendent, has gone to the complainants, but that is the only steps that we have put into place with the report at this point in time.
The policy defines, the board policy defines that if there is a third level appeal, at that point, one of the things that you consider is what that first committee said, and the second is what the second committee said as well. So.
Thank you for that clarification, Mrs. Sexton.
Ms. Chambers?
What's an idea for the parents to be able to say, no, I don't want my child reading that book? But how did the parents know what's in the books? Are there reviews they can read with these books? Because otherwise, there's a large number of books, and they're like, well, how will they know what's the content of the books?
Part of our Destiny Media Center, the Information Center, is basically any book that we have in our library. It's actually out on the website, that they can basically look up any book, and it will give the overall review and the information about that book. So all of the materials, just like a card catalog from the public library, where you put in a title of a book and it describes that book and gives you just different factual information of how many pages, what's the reading level, because the Destiny system is actually a K-12 system, and it provides information about each one of our books. But recognize also that our libraries, certain books are only available to the students based upon their age. So a high school collection is not made available to the elementary school.
Well, mainly the book was written for 14 to 18-year-olds, right?
I believe that it was 14 to 18-year-olds, yes.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Okay, so can we, as a board, go on there and look at books that are in the library as far as reviewing?
The Destiny system, the library management system, is a public system that is available through our website, and so it has been available to parents all along. And that's one of those pieces where we think that's really important to make sure that we're communicating. And so if there's a way that we can become more transparent with our parents and make sure that they have the information that they need, that's one of the reasons why the committee, as they were working forward, they said, what are some key points of being able to communicate with parents? Online enrollment was one of those places, and then also the school newsletter. So that way, that's two of the ways that parents get their information. And so that way, we want to make sure that we're transparent and that we're sharing information with parents that have concerns. And also with parents that have no concerns and are just really excited about what their children are reading.
I might ask real quick, because earlier we went through handbooks. I know the middle school handbook has a library policies piece. Would it be prudent to put this information in the handbooks as well?
We actually, when we develop the wording, there are a couple other things that we could do with that wording. We could include it in the elementary, middle school, and high school handbook. You've already approved the elementary, but we could bring wording back to you that you could approve, and we could slide into those. The other place that we could put this is actually on our website, on the parent page, to have available to them that here is a way that if you want to have more oversight, if you want information about what your child's reading, here's how to get that information. And if you personally want more oversight, here is the way for you to get that into place. I did tell Mrs. Rector that I want her to move forward with the 2 suggestions that the committee had made as far as the newsletters and the enrollment, because I think that that transparency is helpful to families. And I think that for our families that are concerned, that gives them some control. And I think for all of our families, more information is always better. But if you would also like for us to consider those other 2 places, I think that that's easy to do. We could use the same wording.
As we look through those things, is there action that's required from our board based on the response from the committee? We've got procedural things. The handbook piece, would that require action from our board at this
If
time?
we are going to add it to the board, to the not the enrollment, excuse me. If we're going to add it to the handbooks, yes, that would require board action because you approve the handbooks. Those other 3 places, we can just put the language because it really is more procedural. It's implementation of board policy that's already in place, and it really is just transparency. So there is no need for board action on that end. We can just take the committee recommendations and go with that. But if you want it in the handbooks, I need to know that so that I can bring wording back to you because you do formally approve handbooks. That's because at that point they become policy, if you will. Does that help clarify?
Okay. What are the thoughts on that as far as language on the handbook? I'd be interested in at least exploring that.
Jim, what I'd like to propose is Mr. Dooley, Mr. Chrisman, Dr. Kipp, and Dr. Brungart clearly put a lot of time into preparing what we heard Dr. Stevens present tonight. I wonder, Dr. Stevens, if you can get those 4 gentlemen together with whoever else was involved and just consider this. If Mrs. Exline.
And it would probably be a K-12 wording, probably for the elementary as well. So we could get a couple of elementary principals to provide insight as well.
From my point of view, y'all are the experts. And if you feel the language is appropriate, then I'd love to read it in the same context.
And we do have a media chair at the elementary and also at the secondary level, so we will work with them to develop language.
We'll make that happen and have it in the next month's agenda so that you can actually see the wording in the context of those handbooks. Okay?
Okay. Any other questions at this time? All right. Thank you, Ms. Rector.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us to school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. Ms. Schamberg, have you attended any of the meetings to the committees you're assigned to lately?
I went to the work session and then attended both Central and South's National Honor Society inductions.
Thank you. Mr. Grant?
I attended a Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting in March. I don't think anything to report from that meeting for this group, and because of spring break, there was no Board of Control meeting from CKCIE.
I gave out a You Make a Difference award at Schilling. I attended the Board of Education listening session, and I was part of the prize patrol with the Slanted Education Foundation at Meadowlark, Sunset, and Coronado.
Ms. Zimmerman?
I attended the work session and I listened to Shannon Rector on KINA discussing, I think it was safety and security, is that right? Yes. I attended both the National Honor Society induction ceremonies at Central and South. I attended the Equity Council. We discussed mainly how to get staff on the council who really want to be there, and so they will attend. There's some that are completely devoted to it, and others who are on the Equity Council but don't attend very often. Let's see, did I say the listening session? I thought it was a really good discussion and with a lot of give and take and respectful interaction. So that was a satisfying thing after sitting through so many public comments without any feedback or any response from us. I think it was happy for us and happy for the people that were there. I attended the Master Teacher event in Emporia with Master Teacher Melanie Hammond, and to my surprise, we also got to honor Master Teacher Vicki Marcosi, who used to be the art teacher at Oakdale. So she lives out of state now. It was really fun to see her again. And I attended the Chamber of Commerce annual banquet with the district table, and Selena was looking positive on the presentations at the Chamber banquet. I believe that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorrell. Mr. Gardner.
Did the Heartland meetings, and I know I did something else, but old age has got me stumped now, so.
Thank you, Dr. Bandry.
I attended last month's Smoky Hill Education Service Center board meeting. And then following up on what Mr. Chambers presented about earlier in today's meeting, Match Madness affected both of those organizations. Jeff Norris was 10 for 10 from the free throw line to get extra dollars for Slanted Education Foundation. And obviously those are fun things, but the serious nature of all that is just the generosity of this community to support all educational endeavors. So both Slanted Education Foundation and Smoky Hill are blessed to be a part of the community. And I'm perhaps biased, but I think they both do a tremendous job serving the community as well. And your words to Mr. Chambers earlier were accurate. I mean, he does a tremendous job of leading us. So those things are both moving on nicely. Speaking of community and even fitness perhaps, I delivered a You Make a Difference Award at Lakewood for Cindy Baker. And to do that, I wish Mr. Crispin was still here, because I met him in the dining hall and he said, "Mark, we got to go clear the other side of the building." And I need to tell you, Mr. Crispin can walk. I mean, I'm in pretty good shape, and I can walk, and Mr. Upson's seen me do some workouts. We can do things, but Mr. Crispin can move through the building, and he needs to be recognized for that as well. So that was a good event, good endeavor. I was able to help Miss Mahoney's class at Salina South with some mock interviews recently, and that was a tremendous experience. She had 7 young people who are proposing medical careers, whether at nurse or perhaps pre-med and various things, and it's just really neat to interact with them and just hear their perspective, to be able, along with Mr. Rossett and Ms. DeVoe, who helped me these times. It was a neat opportunity. So thanks to Ms. Mahoney for the invitation. Attended the board listening session, which, Jim, kudos to you. I texted you that, but for the public as well. It was tremendously well led. I think it was a good endeavor, and hopefully one outcome of that was perhaps further such listening sessions, some things Mrs. Exline will do in a similar way, and just a really positive outcome all the way around. And I think I'm almost as old as Mr. Gardner, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something else, but that's what I remember for right now.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Bandry. So I attended one of the chamber executive meetings this month, and a couple kind of highlights from that meeting. It was repeated at the annual banquet, but there's a big recognition out there right now that the impression of Salina when you Google Salina, Kansas is not necessarily what you get when you show up in Salina, Kansas. So the city is working to do a lot of marketing there to make sure that the true message is being told. One of the things, Superintendent Exline and I were sitting there and we said, wait a minute, we've got a bunch of new materials too that need to be a part of that. So we're trying to work with the chamber and partner as our business partners are bringing employees into the community as we get houses built. You know, it's going to take the whole community to lift this up, and we want to make sure that people are seeing us in the light that Salina really is, not necessarily what you get when you Google it. Got to be part of presenting a You Make a Difference Award at South High. The listening sessions I thought that was great. I think it was a great opportunity to sit down and have conversation, and appreciate everybody who was able to make that. A Parks and Rec meeting, and then Saturday night I got to go to after prom. Not too often I get to stay up till 2:30 in the morning, but that's always kind of a neat thing to be a part of, to see the really good things our students are doing and stuff like that. So we do have, I didn't quite go through these pieces here, but make sure you mark your calendars. April 26th, we do have a work session, so it'll be later this month. And then our retirement reception for our retiring staff on the 1st of May. And then, of course, the best time of the year for us is graduation on May 15th. So, Superintendent, excellent.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just a couple things that I want you to know about. It was announced today that Kylie Carter, she is actually a student at South High, a senior, was one of 140 students named as a 2022 CTE Honor Scholar in the state of Kansas. So a really neat thing for Kylie. We're proud of her. I was able to go and recognize Shannon Jones, who is a pre-K teacher at Sunset, with a teacher award that is presented by the Credit Union of America and Project Teacher. And that is something that peers can nominate staff for, and just people that are really making a difference for students. And so it was fun to be in a pre-K classroom with Shannon. Those little guys were so cute when their teacher got an award. That got their attention. And then we left her to try to get order back in place. So we did have our accreditation site visit, and I want to give a shout out to Deanna Cullens and Shanna Rector and the educational programs team, because the amount of work that went into that final report was incredible. And that final report we'll get the feedback, and that's due later this week. Jim mentioned that the city of Salina that the chamber is actually doing kind of a marketing project, and we also are doing a marketing project, as you know. We had our videotaping on March 24th, and so Jennifer was hard at work on that, and I appreciate her efforts there and just her ability to get all that scheduled with the bits of tape that we wanted for that marketing project. We have started some small focus groups to gather information as well, and so I'm anxious to review that information and see what we can do to get better. And then finally, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Stevens. He has arranged tours of businesses for our counseling and administrative staff, so that the people that are talking to our students about their individual plans of study understand exactly what the businesses are here in Salina that are looking for workers. That's a follow-up from that Building Bridges event that he brought to fruition this year, that we've been working toward for several years. So far, tours at Caperian Catron, Great Plains, Stryton Manufacturing, and Vortex, and he has another one that is upcoming at Tony's. And so just trying to get staff so that they can speak to students about, here are all the great places that you could come back and work in Salina, and to educate our teachers and staff so that they're ready to engage in those conversations. So I just think that was a lot of work on his part to get everything put together to arrange that. So good things happening on the individual plan of study again.
Yeah, I just kind of echo that. I toured Tony's here not too long ago, and it's no longer putting pepperonis on pizza, it's controlling the robots. You know, the robotics students we had here, it's working the robots that do those things. So, good deal. We do have a need for executive session for negotiations. If someone would make a motion, please.
Let's do 25 minutes.
And let's do 5 minutes to lead in.
Before we start.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education go into executive session at 7:50 for 25 minutes for the purpose of discussing employer-employee negotiations, because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize resolution of the negotiation issues, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 8:15 in the SEC room.
Motion, is there a second? Mr. Gardner seconds. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. We will be in executive session. Okay, we are back from executive session. We need to go back. Got another motion?
Yeah, make a motion. Mr. President, I move the Board of Education go into executive session at 8:16 for 10 minutes for the purpose of discussing employer-employee negotiations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize resolution of the negotiation issues, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 8:26 in the SEC room.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 4-0. We'll be back in executive session. We're back from executive session. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education go into executive session at 8:27 for 15 minutes for the purpose of discussing employer-employee negotiations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize resolution of the negotiation issues, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 8:42 in the SEC room.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 4-0. Back from executive section, Dr. Bandre, do you have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 8:43 for 15 minutes for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel and their contractual obligations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed, and the Board of Education convene in open session at 8:58 in the SEC room.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Zimmerman. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. We'll be in executive. Okay, we are back from executive session. Do we have a motion? Dr. Bandry?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve renewing the contracts for certified administrators and classified directors for 1 additional year.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Grant seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. President, move we adjourn.
We will be adjourned.